Hey everybody, it's Jake Tapper from CNN State of the Union and factcheck.org. And this week we're going to take a look at some of the claims that President Trump has been making in his attacks against Amazon.com. President Trump has said a number of things about Amazon, many of them false, but today we're going to take a look at President Trump's claim that the U.S. Postal Service is losing money because of Amazon and that the taxpayers are footing the bill for Amazon deliveries. Take a listen to a claim President Trump just made.
The post office is losing billions of dollars and the taxpayers are paying for that money because it delivers packages for Amazon at a very below cost. And that's not fair to the United States. It's not fair to our taxpayers.
Is that true? Is the U.S. Postal Service losing, quote, billions of dollars of taxpayer money because it's delivering packages for Amazon at, quote, below cost? No, that's not true. Now, it is true that the U.S. Postal Service has run up huge deficits for years. According to its most recent annual report to the Securities and Exchange Commission, the Postal Service lost more than $65 billion in the decade between 2007 and 2017. But there is zero evidence that Amazon has anything to do with these tremendous deficits. In fact, the part of the Postal Service that Amazon is using, it's called Competitive Services, is the fastest growing part of the Postal Service's business operation. In a letter responding to Forbes magazine last year, the Postal Service wrote, quote, "Last year, Competitive Products contributed $6 billion to covering these infrastructure costs. Absent the critical revenue provided by our package business, senders of letters and other types of mail would have to bear the entire cost burden of this infrastructure." Okay, so according to the Postal Service, Amazon is not costing them billions of dollars. What about the claim by President Trump that the Postal Service is delivering Amazon packages at, quote, below cost? Amazon's contract with the Postal Service for shipping services is not publicly available, so we don't know exactly how much Amazon pays. But what we do know is that a federal law requires the Postal Service to charge enough to cover the cost of delivering packages for companies such as Amazon. The U.S. Postal Service Chief Financial Officer Joseph Corbett said in a response to the Wall Street Journal last year that it is, quote, inaccurate to say that the Postal Service delivers Amazon packages below cost. We should point out that the Postal Service is not being transparent about this, and we reached out to them as well, and they declined to provide the facts and figures to back up what they're saying. Let's now take a look at the president's claim that taxpayers foot the bill for the Postal Service's perceived loss of money because of Amazon. Take a look at this tweet from the president this week. Quote, "I am right about Amazon costing the United States Post Office massive amounts of money for being their delivery boy. Amazon should pay these costs plus and not have them borne by the American taxpayer. Many billions of dollars. Post Office leaders don't have a clue. Or do they?" Curious spelling of the word born aside, it's simply not true, at least according to the Postal Services, that the U.S. taxpayer is paying these costs. In fact, the U.S. Postal Service does not receive money from the federal government for its operating costs, as Trump's statements seem to suggest. In fact, that's why the Postal Service is losing money. According to the Postal Service website, quote, "The Postal Service receives no tax dollars for operating expenses and relies on the sale of postage, products, and services to fund its operations." So the U.S. taxpayer is not paying for the delivery costs at all. Now, we should point out the Postal Service has borrowed $15 billion, the maximum allowed by law, from the Treasury Department's Federal Financing Bank, but those funds are not related to any services provided to Amazon. Rather, they're being used to fund the Postal Service retiree health care plan. So all of these claims that the president said about the Postal Service and Amazon are not true. It's not true that it's below cost. It's not true that the taxpayers are paying for it. And in fact, it is true, and the president ignores how important the Amazon part of the business of the Postal Service is to keeping the Postal Service alive. There are so many untruths here, it almost makes you wonder if the real issue is that Amazon is owned by Jeff Bezos, who also owns the Washington Post, which reports aggressively on President Trump. A reminder to all you politicians out there, you're perfectly entitled to your own opinions, not to your own facts. I'm Jake Tapper from CNN State of the Union and factcheck.org.